Hello, my name is Tim Grady. I'm from the Lawton Seventh Adventist Church, Lawton, Oklahoma, USA. I am just a member. I'm here tonight to discuss part two of what the church, the linear of the church, and why I thought the church and the General Conference meeting brings us very close to the opening of the little time of trouble, um, paralleling the Sunday law. Um, and how that all relates to today. And tonight, I'm going to discuss what's happening with um, the world. So let's go over here to Time Magazine. But before we do this, let's let's start with a word of prayer. Eternal God, please help me get this clear. Please help me make this message clear to whoever sees it. Please, God, let me not go off into rabbit holes and other chasing butterflies, which I tend to do. Please help me make this concise and understandable. In the name of Jesus Christ, amen. Okay, we're going to start this timeline at Ronald Reagan and the Pope making an alliance to bring down communism in the 80s. This is when Time Magazine did a whole bunch of research. They talked to many people from the Vatican. They talked to many people that were involved. This is when we started speaking. This is when the United States started speaking as a dragon. And the lamb with two horns, which was separation of church and state, is the two horns, and started speaking like a beast. Well, this Ronald Reagan event is where that happened. That is when that started. Here's a couple of articles. I'll try and put the links in the video when I'm done. This is only the opening article of it, because this how Reagan and the Pope conspired to assist Poland's solidarity movement and hasten the decline of communism. Holy alliance. I would like to say it's an unholy alliance, but okay. This is also involving Iran-Contra, supporting the Mujahideen in Afghanistan. One of those that we supported was Osama bin Laden. We have a lot of consequences from that. Okay. And here is Ronald. There is a lot. Okay, let's go back. I mean, I'll try and put these links to these three articles, and they're just the beginning. Because again, you had Iran-Contra, you had the weapons going to the Mujahideen, and one of those Mujahideen was Osama bin Laden that we paid to fight Russia. We also have all the things in Georgia with the warm water port, cutting off Russia. Between the alliance of Ronald Reagan and the Pope did all that, which set in motion what is happening today. A lot of financial things went on. The Vatican gave a loan to the United States to supply weapons to the Mujahideen and so on. So there's a lot more in this, but I'm using this as a starting point. So I'm going to move on to the next. And if you notice, this is the solidarity movement, which means unions in Poland. So let's go to the next major event. And I say that is 9/11. And we have Ellen White's. There are a lot of people in the church that do not accept what Ellen White said about 9/11. They say it applies to a future event, not to this. But when you take it on what it says, I'll give you a chance to read it. And I'm going to now that I'm going to give you, and I'll try and put these 3 links in where it directly is in, and where the opposition says that it is not the 9/11 is not a prophecy, but I will leave you to decide whether that is. So I'm going to take that all out, and I'm going to strictly deal with what the world calls 3 intifadas. In Revelation, it calls it the 3 woes. So that puts it, 9/11 started that. And you can go to the historians, and they are calling it the 3rd Intifada. So you can look up what that means. And in the Bible, when you see it, it's called the 3 woes: the first woe, the second woe, and the third woe. And we're in the 3rd woe, which means the king of the north this is the final battle between the king of the north and the king of the south. This battle started publicly, being acknowledged publicly as the 3rd Intifada, but the Bible calls it the 3rd woe. So let's move on. So let's look at Daniel 11, verse 40, and let's break this down into its 3 parts. And at the time of the end shall the king of the south push at him, and the king of the north shall come against him like a whirlwind. The accepted translation of this first part here is from the from the end of the French Revolution into the Communist Revolution, and it's forming up the alliances that are today, which is Russia, China, North Korea, and radical Islam. So that is the King of the South alliance from the end of the French Revolution to the communist revolutions that happened in China and Russia and the radical Islam. And then the Arab Spring that happened in 2000, in the early 2000s. And that's where that all coalesced into what is currently the King of the South today and the King of the North. By the way, that battle is going to go on until the return of Jesus Christ, when the veil is removed and the people see that they have been deceived and go after the leaders and use the weapons that they would be using against us to kill them. That's later on in Revelation. Right now we're only dealing with Daniel. So, and then oh, by the way, pushing is one term, and that's like a cow or a bull pushing you, but not goring you. Goring is a different definition in the Bible. Goring is like when a bull gores a matador and leaves the matador wounded. So that is the difference between pushing is an annoying, and goring is a major wound from one to the other. And where we are at basically today is he shall enter also into the glorious land, and many countries shall be overthrown, but these shall escape out of his hand, even Edom and Moab, and the chief of the children of Oman. That is where we are at today. And let's go to look at the equivalent in Revelation. So you come to Revelation 13:14. And deceiveth them that dwell on the earth by the means of those miracles which he had power to do in the sight of the beast, saying to them that dwelleth on the earth, that they should make an image to the beast, which had the wound by the sword and did live. This is Berthier. This is all tying into the French Revolution, Berthier taking the Pope into the captivity, wounded by the sword, capturing Berthier, or Berthier capturing the Pope at the time. Then we're going to come down to Revelation 13, verse 15. And he had power to give life unto the image of the beast. That the image of the beast should both speak and cause that as many would not worship the image of the beast should be killed. So we're right between, in Revelation 13, 14, and 15, we're right in between those. So let's, so now that we come back to the unions, this is one I have a little uncomfortable about what Ellen White wrote. This is a compilation written by Ellen White. When you therefore shall see the abomination of desolation spoken by Daniel the prophet, and stand in the holy place, whoso readeth, let him understand. Then let them which be in Judea flee into the mountains. Okay, there are two abominations of desolations. One that came at the temple when the temple was destroyed in 70 AD, and the second one is a Sabbath law that will start in 4 stages. We have the blue law that says time and a half. Then it will be, you have to worship on Sunday, but it's okay to do so on Saturday, on the Sabbath, on the true Sabbath. Then you have the first one, then you have the second one. Then the third one is going to be, you must only worship on Sunday, and it will be illegal to worship on the Sabbath. And the fourth one is the death decree for violating the earlier two, where you must worship on the Sabbath, you must worship on Sunday, what they call the Sabbath, instead of what is the true Sabbath, Friday sundown to Saturday sundown, changing the times and the laws. The times and the laws are, instead of being from sundown to sundown, man does it midnight to midnight instead of sundown to sundown. Man changed it from Saturday, Sabbath, what God sanctified, to what man tried to sanctify, but no man can sanctify, unless God sanctifies it. Man can not make holy without God sanctifying it. Sunday is not sanctified as a day of worship. For it's not a replacement for the Sabbath. I'm not going to get into all of that, but I'm showing what Ellen White wrote. And I'm coming here to the labor unions. For years, I have been given special light that we are not to center our work in the cities. The turmoil and confusion that fill the cities. Here, I'll just let the reader read it. It does a better job than me. Okay.
4 years I have been given special light that we are not to center our work in the cities.
Sorry.
The turmoil and confusion that fill.
It's still on my speed. Let's put that down to a reasonable speed. Okay.
4 years I have been given special light that we are not to center our work in the cities. The turmoil and confusion that fill these cities, the conditions brought about by the labor unions and the strikes, would prove a great hindrance to our work. Men are seeking to bring those engaged in the different trades under bondage to certain unions. This is not God's planning, but the planning of a power that we should in no wise acknowledge. God's word is fulfilling, the wicked are binding themselves up in bundles ready to be burned. 54 Testimonies for the Church 7:84.
She talks a lot about labor unions, and she is putting the Sabbath law in the second part of the second abomination of desolation from Daniel, and is associating that with the labor unions. By the way, the labor unions just have struck in Los Angeles, the No Kings movement, and some of these other movements that went along with these riots. The riots are not over. This Ellen White is saying this is a placing the standard. It's like when Romans came, placed the standard, attacked, left, and came back and totally desolated, because that gave the time the Christians to leave the city and not be caught up in it. Yes, they were still persecuted and chased down, but they did not die in the horror of Jerusalem. So the labor unions, and again, let's go back to how Ronald Reagan and the Pope conspired to assist Poland's solidarity, which means unions, movement, and hasten the demise of communism and what they were calling the Holy Alliance. I say it's the unholy alliance, but that's for you to decide. And that's why I am marking it at Ronald Reagan. I'm starting with Ronald Reagan, then I'm coming over to 9/11. Take or leave Ellen White's 9/11, but 9/11 started the war. Okay, then we're going to come into what Ellen White said. I'm going to just paraphrase it because it's all over her writings. And she said it will be exactly war, pestilence, the ouchie Fauci, and she didn't put the ouchie Fauci. I'm putting that in. And then famine that came from that. And there is many, many people that have died from the famine, from how that is. You can read up and study how that is. But then it would be repeated war, pestilence, and famine. And she also says there's going to be ecological disasters. We can go to the Great Controversy, and we can start at page Great Controversy, page 598.1, and all the way to the end of 592.3, and what she says about the ecological disasters and disasters from the four winds releasing their slowly releasing their grip, which is going to cause earthquakes, diverse places, and all the rest of that. Here it is. I'll leave a link to it if you're interested in reading up on that. So let's go back to Ronald Reagan, Time Magazine, 9/11. Then we're going to get to the invasion by Russia into Ukraine. Some say that is the start of the second portion of the third woe or third intifada. And some say that the invasion of Jerusalem is the marking point of the second phase of that war. Okay, then the next thing that comes is there will be a great calamity, ecological calamity. I'm going to give you a few scenarios that I believe fit this prophecy. We can go over here. The hole that was poked in, and I'll put a link into this article. Russia drone smashed into Chernobyl's protective dome, fueling fears the next strike could blow a deadly radiation across Europe. Atop Ukraine's official has warned. Well, I believe that hole and that fire that was caused by that drone strike is leaking radiation into the atmosphere. You can study up how the dome uses a high vac pressure system that pulls it through a filter. Let's go down to the next. So here's the pictures of what the drone went through and how big the hole is and the people trying to fix it. But if you notice here, where the sarcophagus is over here, and there's a filtration unit that's in this box right here, whatever you want to call it, this thing right here, where that chimney is coming out of, that is a filter filtering out the radiation and sucking the air so it doesn't go out into the atmosphere. Now that summer has come, the pressure has reversed and is spewing out radiation out of this hole right here. So you can go on and read this. I also believe that I also believe that the bombing of Iran's nuclear facilities is also putting up radiation. Also, the fires that they had from the chemicals that are used as oxidizers for their rockets is extremely toxic. And how many pounds of that was blown up in the port, and how many in other places that is putting that mixed with the radiation, I think is going to make us very sick here shortly, which is going to push things into the whirlwind of the end times. That's where I believe we are at. I also believe that all the roll-on, roll-off ships, where they put cars on them and transport them over the ocean, and all of these ones that are starting on fires and sinking with all of these hybrid batteries now in the ocean that is making the ocean sick. I believe that is part of it. I think there's going to be a lot more. I'll give you another example that is not happened yet, but very well could happen. What happens if we sunk 30 oil tankers transporting illegal by the UN and so on and so forth, illegal oil from Iran and other places. Iran and Russia selling it to North Korea, China, and their other allies to support the weapons and so on and so forth. So if we sunk 30 of those around the world, what would the result be? How much ecological contamination would that cause? Now, if you took 30 ships that are currently shipping oil and keeping the economic engine of the world currently running, and you drop that down, that would cause an oil shortage around the world. Not only it will be an ecological, it will also be where no man can buy nor sell. And I believe the mechanism of that will be central bank digital currencies, reverse interest rates, and tokenization of assets. I believe those three mechanisms. Reverse interest rates are where the government comes in and says, we can't pay our bills, so we're going to go take out of your accounts, your properties, your 401ks, your saving plans, and you can study up on central bank digital currencies, and you can, reverse interest rates, what has happened in Japan, what has happened in Europe, what has happened in South America, and what has happened in other countries all around us that has not happened here yet, but will probably happen here for the no buy, no sell. So let's go back. Let's go back to Ronald Reagan. Then we'll come back to Ellen White's. And where is that? Ellen White's prophecy written here. And I'll give you the people that say it's not. So again, we're throwing that out. But we're going to go with 9/11, whether you accept Ellen White's prophecy or you don't. The world accepts it as the Third Intifada, which is the Battle of the King of the North, which today is which is the Papal Rome mixed with the United States, starting with Ronald Reagan. That is why I believe, with what I said yesterday, with Matthew 24 saying, do not pay attention to what we're talking about here, the wars and how it goes, that is in Revelation. But he says, what the church will do when you preach the everlasting gospel. So we take all of this and we're in the second phase of the Third Intifada. And where I showed you in Daniel and Revelation where we are at. And with both of those coming together at one time, with ministries that are now putting satellite to reach all of the South American languages, tongues, people groups, and the man in white dreams in the Muslim countries and in some of the India all the way through Indochina and the other dreams and the other people that are being reached by God raising up rocks or dreams, instead of us preaching the gospel where we should have preached, and the church coming to a head over the unholy alliances that they've had with the United Nations. Ellen White has many, many warnings to the leadership not to do that. She had many, many warnings to our colleges to not go to accreditation because we were supposed to be the head, not the tail. When we are accredited, someone else is telling us what we should teach. The hospitals, all the United States hospitals performing abortions, and the problems that they have taken the money from Medicare, Medicaid, and other programs, and they put all of the statements from the affirmation statements and the statements where we became part of the United Nations, actually in the 70s, but most people acknowledge it in the early 80s. And then what happened in the 90s and so on. This is why I am saying we are coming to a head in both streams of time. Again, I'm having a problem. I have a problem that I don't want to associate signs of leaving the cities with Daniel's whoso readeth this, let him understand. And then where she's associating it with Daniel's to flee the city, the first and second. But what I'm understanding of this is a preamble. This is a sign, just like it's not a sign of the direct end, but it is a sign to leave the cities. And then when I go into the original, again, I will give you the original text for that about the unions, and I will put that in the link. Testimonies for the Church, Volume 7. Okay, let me deal with this real quick, and then we'll go back and do a review and probably close this out. Ellen White had warnings to leave the city for her time, for the reason she put in, that we shouldn't pack ourselves together in cities where people are watching your business and so on and so forth, and all of the evils of her day. But when you read those evils of her day, it's when my grandchildren are playing video games on their phones. It is when they're watching TV instead of studying the Bible, instead of doing what they're supposed to do. They are being taken out. But then there's a warning at the end that is marked by these unions here. And that is, I'd say that started when Ronald Reagan made the deal with the Solidarity in Poland, which is the union movement in Poland, which is currently rioting and stopping war supplies going to Ukraine. So if you read up on all of that and how the unions around the world are causing problems. I'm not going to say this Pope is, but this Pope is been a union organizer. He's also part of the astronomy and astrology in the Catholic Church. That was one of his duties, was to but the main thing that I take away from his bio is that he is going to be organizing unions. If you go through all of the news footage and news, all of the live news that happened during the riots in Los Angeles, the unions were calling cabs, driverless cabs, and throwing Molotov cocktails in them and burning them because they were not using union drivers. They were also tearing up things that were non-union. And if you look into the No Kings movement and all of the other ones that are, you will trace them all back to unions. That will be probably my next video I record, will be on unions and leaving the city and how to leave the city very inexpensively. If you are taking this serious and you want to leave the city, I'm going to discuss different methods of that. So starting with Ronald Reagan, again, Poland solidarity, which is when you hear solidarity, that is the unions and the troubles that unions make. Then we go to 9/11, which opens up the third intifada or third woe in the Bible. And that is the battle of the king of the north and the king of the south. This battle is going to end at the return of Jesus Christ, when the veil is, and they can now see the great controversy between Gog and Magog, or Christ and Satan, at the end battle, where they have their veil removed and they go, oh, we have been deceived and we have lost our salvation. And they will go after the ones and use the weapons against us. So 9/11, whether you take Ellen White's or you take the history or you take the Bibles, direct, all three of them line up at the king of the north and the king of the south, and there are only three woes. There's not four. The third woe takes us all the way. That third woe takes us all the way to the end and return of Jesus Christ. So this war is going to eventually go worldwide, but it's not going to look like World War I, World War II. It is going to be something very different than what we are expecting. I believe that the environmental hazards and things that are already in the air but have not affected us fully yet, but all of this is all coming down into a point. And it's like, have you ever seen those tubes of toothpaste where there's 3 or 4 different colors in them, and you squeeze them and they all come out still? And that's what it is. All of this history and all of this is happening into a small point coming together. And that's why I believe we are very, very close. And again, number one, are you ready to die today? If you died in a car wreck, by a heart attack, a stroke, any one of a number of 1,000 things, if you die today, your probation closes today. Do you have that relationship with Jesus Christ that you know you're saved? Have you done what you are supposed to do? So that is it. But I also believe that we are coming to the close of probation of the SDA, or the opening of little time of trouble. Ellen White's warnings that stay in the ship, stay in that ship. The leadership, the superstructure is going to get wiped away, but it may look like that ship is not coming to the port, but it will. This is also the time we are going to have, there is going to be an opening of time at the close of probation till the second or third Sunday law. where we will be able to reach everybody, and there will be many coming out of Islam, Buddhist, all of the Eastern religions, and all of the Christian horrors of Babylon. We will be having those come in to us. And we will be able to witness to them and be able to have it. And that's where I'm coming and saying, I believe with the two parallel events coming together, very, very, very shortly. I believe it could be as short as 60 days, and I believe it could be as, if God holds the winds back, it could be beyond my lifetime. But I'm believing that because of we know where we're at in the King of the North and the King of the South battle, that it can't be much longer. The world recognizes it. We recognize it. If you read the Bible and find out that, the third intifada has started, and all of the things that are about to line up, that's why I believe the Seventh-day Adventist close of probation, time of little trouble, is very much shortly going to be coming. I did not understand what whirlwind, rapid movements, and all of the verbiage that the Bible and Ellen White uses, and how fast things can happen, until the war in Israel started, and how fast things have been ticked off of the check mark. Okay, this check mark, that check mark, that check mark. And if you go to the check marks that are left in Daniel 11 and Revelation 13, there really isn't much left. And those times are moving very, very, very quickly. So, again, I hope that you have your relationship with God. And if you don't, there's very little time left to get it right, to spend the time with God. No man, no building, no preacher, no pastor, no evangelist can save you. Only you can save you by having a personal relationship with Jesus Christ. So with that, I am done today. Okay. That wasn't what